Hi, everybody. Welcome to Baggage Claim. It's Katrina.
I'm Julia, and this is a show about living with mental health in today's society.
And I'm Mel, and we're here every Tuesday at 8 o'clock. And before we get started tonight, we want to make sure that everyone understands that we are not mental health professionals. We are mental health patients, and we're just here to talk to you guys about living with the thing.
So welcome back to episode 2 of Baggage Claim. Tonight we're going to be talking about depression and anxiety, two things that affect hundreds of millions of people around the world. We wanted to start out by giving a definition of depression, so we kind of have like a baseline of what we're going to be talking about. Depression is a mood disorder that causes a persistent feeling of sadness and a loss of interest in things once loved by the person. It can affect how you feel, think, and behave, and can lead to a variety of emotional and physical problems. You may have trouble doing normal day-to-day activities, and sometimes you may not even feel like life is worth living. So that's kind of our definition. And there's another definition, a shorter one on the screen as well. So ladies, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think this is a great topic to have, especially with the situation going on in the world right now. And just kind of what's happening in our lives and what's happened in our lives. I'd love to kind of start out with like maybe how it manifests for all of us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's good too. And real quick, guys, what you're going to see on our bottom here is if you have a moment where something that we say or whatever goes on where you need to reach out to somebody professional, we've decided this week to put up the National Suicide Prevention Hotline and the Crisis Hotline. It's just a suicide hotline, but so reach out to those guys if something that we says makes you feel like you need to. Never feel bad. We talked about stigma and shame last week. Never feel bad for doing that.
Absolutely. All right, girls. So I think let's dive in. Let's talk about depression and how it manifests for us. I think it probably is different for everybody. Julia, do you mind starting?
Sure. For me, in depressive episodes, I've had my symptoms are pretty textbook. I tend to sleep a lot, more than usual. Have a lot of lethargy, lack of energy. Of course, my mind is blanking the second we have to talk about this. I lose interest in normal activities that I enjoy, such as like walking my dog. I love to walk my dog each morning. But when I'm depressed, I can't get out of bed and walk her. I'll ask a relative or a friend if they can walk her, which is something that's just like not me. That's all I can think of for right now. Mel?
Let me unmute my microphone first so I could do this. The big manifest lately especially has been like the morning is really, really trying for me. And I have been having those moments where I'm like, I don't think it matters at all. Like where I'll sit in bed and I'll stare at the ceiling and it's like I should get up, I should do all the things that I should do. And I have a list of things to do, but it's like, what's the point? And then I am a sleeper. Like I know my depression is happening. Like I know I'm cycling into a depressive cycle, like where I'm going into a phase, because mine kind of works in phases where I kind of have the up and the down a little bit. But especially like if I'm napping in the middle of the afternoon, even when I don't need to, like, because I have a lot of I have physical disabilities that where it's like I'll do a bunch of stuff and I need to sit and I need to take a drink of water and I need to maybe take a 20-minute nap. But when I'm just like laying down and sleeping in the middle of the afternoon for no reason, even when I don't feel tired, I'm just like, I don't know what else to do. I'm going to sleep. And then it's like, I'll wake up 20, 30 minutes later and I'm going to go back to sleep. And it's just really, it's a vicious cycle. I just feel like I can turn my brain off when I'm sleeping, I guess.
Yeah, that's such a good way to put it. And I'm not surprised that like sleep is something that's common for both of you. I think it's really common for me as well, and probably for a lot of people. I think that probably, but I'm with Mel in the fact that like how my depression manifests is like it's a cycle, and sometimes I know it's coming. I feel it. I just like little changes in my habits will, like go in my brain and be like, okay, like it's coming. And that's great when, you know, I can then tell my partner, hey, like something's off, something might be coming. And then there's episodes that, you know, I just had recently, and maybe this is going into a different topic, which is like how debilitating it is for us. But, you know, I just recently, like literally over the weekend, went through a severe depressive episode, you know, to the point where I hurting myself, banging my head against the wall, against the shower, like felt good, right? It had that euphoria to it. Hitting, throwing, just this behavior that like isn't common, but sometimes can manifest, and it's very scary for me and for everybody around. And those come sporadically, right? Like those are something I just can't control as much.
Yeah, also feelings of worthlessness are a big part, that like hopelessness and worthlessness, and then eventually that can lead to feelings of suicidality, or, you know, not, even if you don't actually want to kill yourself, that feeling of not wanting to live anymore, just not wanting to have to get up in the morning, not wanting to have to do another day, not wanting to have to go through things that we go through in any given, you know, moment from day to day. I think that tends to come with deep depression.
Absolutely.
And I would say, let's see. I mean, it's debilitating because, like you said, like you get that feeling where you're like, you know, if I was nowhere right now and I was just gone, I wouldn't feel this and I wouldn't feel that and I wouldn't feel this. And it's like, and then I get mad at myself for feeling that way, because it's like, well, don't be absolutist and don't be a downer and don't do all those things. And then you sort of get that, like, it almost makes it, well, it does. It makes it worse, because you're in that situation where you're like, I hate myself. And then I hate myself for hating myself. And I used to do a lot more throwing and banging, because that was how it was manifested by the adults in my life. They were throwers and bangers and shovers. And I'll never forget an aunt at a Thanksgiving dinner just going off on my father and just pushing a kitchen table like across the room. And so, you know, that was sort of the way that, yeah, I mean, it's monkey see, monkey do, I guess. It's like a terrible way to say it, but because depression and anxiety are genetic as well, you know. And then I almost sometimes wish that I would go back to throwing and kicking, because I get like screamy, or that feeling of not wanting to get up and just feeling like I will lay here forever is almost worse, because at least when I'm throwing and kicking, I'm doing something. I'm getting some exercise.
Yeah.
And just laying there is just laying there, and it can really get out of hand.
I felt that more too in the recent months of you know, everything going on, having to be at home, and like there's only so many rooms I can go into and hobbies that I can do, you know, in a garden that I can grow. Like it just gets repetitive, and it can get really depressing. And then all you do is start sleeping, and it's just this cycle, you know, it just continues that cycle.
I used to drive. I can't drive anymore because of my disabilities and my brain surgeries, because I don't have vision on one side. And one of my ultimate get away and chill out things that I used to do was drive. And I will never forget the sort of combination of depression that I had, where it was like, okay, I'm losing all these things that I can't do anymore. And one of the best ways that I blow off steam is no longer available to me. And that was a toughie to get used to. I mean, that was like, thank God I live in a place now that has sidewalks. And so my next deal is to like go for a freaking walk, throw your shoes on, and just go outside. But it took a while. I mean, when I was living in cities where there wasn't, around the country where it was like, you can't walk down these country roads because there's just rednecks riding down the road at like 9 million miles an hour, and I'm not going to get like dumped into a ditch. It's hard. My dog is getting her anxiety and depression out on the little chew toy next to me. That's what you're hearing. And I can't do that either. It just doesn't work. I can't. Maybe I should try that. Maybe I need to try a dog chew toy and just.
Sorry, I wanted to bring up
you went to
article.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And it's just really was talking about how depression and anxiety has really increased since COVID. And I know we've been talking about that, but I'd love, how are you guys, besides sleeping, and are you guys doing anything healthy that is helping you? Any activities or anything like that?
Is it my turn?
I've kind of been, I was doing really well at first, and the longer this pandemic goes on, the less I'm handling it well. And I think or handling it at all. I've been leaning more and more into my depression as of late, and just, like I said, getting out of bed later each day, not taking care of, not engaging in as much self-care as I usually engage in, or taking care of myself, my personal hygiene the way I normally do. Not finding activities throughout the day, but instead just sleeping. So the longer this goes on, the more I find myself kind of in that sort of state. I don't know about you guys.
I would say that as it goes on, that's definitely right. It's the longer it goes, because it's the longer you have to sort of hear people talking about you as a kind of disposable entity. People that have chronic illness, people that have, whatever the chronic condition is. I was like, when we were doing research for this show, I was shocked that depression, anxiety is one of the top, it's in the top 5 or something like that of chronic illnesses. And I was like, I get that, because the longer it goes on, and especially if it's not treated, or you can only get, if it's not treated, forget it. It's like, you finally go to the doctor and they tell you have stage 4 cancer, and now you have to start from there. And it's pretty much so far into the thing. But especially with this, it's there's so much media out there being like, well, you have underlying health conditions, so it's okay. And I'm just like, no, that's worse. That makes it harder. It makes it harder for me to be, because now I'm like, well, if I don't matter, then it doesn't matter if I get up, and it doesn't matter if I brush my hair or take that shower or go take that. And it's fighting that is hard. I've had to go back. Now that we have an actual home to live in that I'm very grateful for, I've gone back to doing things everyone was baking bread and baking everything. And I was like, I know how to do that. I'm a good baker. And that is one that, that's my Zen right there. I am such a, I used to make cheesecakes for our business, and that was something I really took a lot of I don't know, it's like painting a picture or something, your artist has a thing, baking, measuring, and being disciplined, and having to pay attention to how hot it is in the oven, and having the different oven. That is something that, and my garden is finally, my tomatoes are getting out of control finally, so I'm like, yay, I can start canning.
That's awesome.
I started a garden this year, and it didn't go so well. It didn't survive, so it was very disappointing. But that was something I definitely loved doing, and I won't stop. It's been sad, and I love baking as well. People get very mad that I like to bake cookies, but there's that I can only do that for so long. I feel like gets to the point where everything's repetitive and nothing. Oh my God, muggy and hot. Yeah, it's.
You don't really want to be running your
complaining, but it's really hard. I feel like it's important for people to know that it's okay that it can be hard and difficult at times.
Yeah, we're isolated right now. We're more isolated than we've ever been, and we have less like interaction with people. I mean, you guys are the two of the people I see every week right now.
Which is kind of cool and helping, but it's true. It's like we're having to forge a new way of relationships because like you can't go have that, pint at the bar or movies. Movies were a big one for us. We like going to the movies and getting that experience. I like sports. Katrina knows how much I love wrestling. Yeah, how much I like to, and there's something to be, I was a sports player as a kid, and it was something that I felt really confident about, that I didn't get depressed about. And it was one of these things where I was like, oh, I can throw myself into that. And I can't play as much, but I can go to the sports. And there is something very like, screaming your head off for your team or your wrestler or your whatever is very like, it just feels good sometimes. It's just yelling your head off. So,
yeah, absolutely.
All this social stuff being taken away it makes it harder. It's like, oh, I've got this all figured out. And now here's this whole new like thing that you have to do. And yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think this is a good segment or segue into anxiety. And
are we going to talk about what we do about our depression?
Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry. Thank you.
No, we're not going to talk.
What do we do?
What do we do? Not just the baking thing.
Medication is one thing.
Medication, for sure.
Yeah.
That's okay. There's no shame in taking medication for its intended purpose.
Yeah, no, I have to actually, that's such a good point, because when you aren't doing your self-care, so for me, like my appetite will get kicked. It's just whatever. Well, my pills don't work right if I'm not eating right. So I have to it's one of these things where it's like, okay, even if I have to write it down, be like, eat your food with your pills, because then they don't process right. It just is in your stomach, and that's only going to make it worse. So I have to sort of like really concerted effort to, and my meds are pretty like stabilized now because I've finally found my, while she's behind me, I use this guy right here to help me out with my depression a lot. And I don't know, not walking them sometimes is like, I'm with you, Julia, on the like, I don't even want to, even though it's something I love, but then they come bother you. And it's like they have a sixth sense for these things. So they're like, well, I know that you aren't feeling well, so let me do these funny things. Like today I had a bunch of stuff go on, and the minute I walked through the door, she's just sitting there and she's wagging at me. And she's like, I just want to hang out with you. And I'm like, me too, see? She's like, I don't know, move your arm. But these guys, I have two of these guys, and it's like you were talking about last week, Julia, where you said, that kept you going, like that pulled your sort of head out of the place where you were, that really bad, dark place, because someone's relying on you. Mm-hmm. Someone is, they need to be fed, and they need to be walked, and they need to be played with. And there is something to be said for throwing the ball for these guys for, half an hour, and how happy it makes them.
Pure joy.
Yeah, it's just, and it's nice. And they smile and they wag and they like have their fuzzy ears in the way, and they do this cute stuff that she's doing, and it does make the day better. Hi, I know, you're very funny. All right, someone else go so I can get her out of the way. There.
Honestly, I can't tell you I have a healthy strategy right now of like how to deal with this.
That's fair.
I'm on meds, helps sometimes. Yeah, I haven't found it yet, right? Like the meditation, the yoga, like, yeah, you could, it's just not working. And it's difficult. This is a really difficult time.
Talk therapy is another big one.
Yeah.
I see a therapist twice a week when I need to, at least once a week. And that is someone I rely on to be able to bounce all my thoughts and feelings off of, and kind of talk me into a better mental state, or give me the tools to talk myself into a better mental state.
yeah, I think like I said last week, like I'm realizing how important that is, just to have that kind of other party looking in and giving you a non-objective.
Yeah, I go back and forth on that one too. I'm with Julia. Like I sometimes I do. I mean, I'm on a pretty like once a month talk therapy thing, but when it's like this, fortunately, I have a great therapist, and I'm like, I need to see you twice a month, and she's like, no problem. You learn to like figure that out, but I think a fair like I just want to go back to what Katrina said about not having a strategy. I get it there a lot too, and that's frustrating because even it's like, well, all this stuff has been working for me all up to now. Why isn't this working for me anymore? And that's super frustrating and can lead to that cycle too. And it's like, what do you do when you have no strategy?
That's the $1,000,000 question.
Yeah. Not necessarily like a strategy, just a way to like your coping mechanism, right? It's just, yeah, not there.
I know that.
I have a great system for alleviating depression, anxiety, kind of any issue that you have. And I'll talk about it at the end of once we talk about anxiety. But it's something called a WRAP plan, which is Wellness Recovery Action Plan. And I think it can be helpful to a lot of people. It's definitely helped me.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear about that.
Should we segue into
anxiety? Since, not having anything to like do, or like when you feel like I can't do it, then the anxiety starts to take over. You're like, why can't I do it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be very interested in how it manifests for all of you. I'll go first just to kind of get it going. Anxiety really, like, I have anxiety when I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I have this expectation of myself. And, that can be in a job, that can be doing this, that could be sending an email, right? Like super simple stuff that normal people should be able to do. The anxiety that will cause me is, astronomical. Like it's just like overthinking everything. This word is spelled wrong. This is wrong. Like this doesn't make any sense. And it's like, it does, right? Like I'm just doing this to myself, but that's definitely how my anxiety really manifests. What about you guys?
I think they call that executive dysfunction, right? That's the one where you just like can't do anything. Like you can't, simple crap that you are supposed to be able to do, spell a word, make a phone call. Seriously, I will freak out about making a phone call, something so silly, like just for a bill or just silly stuff. And it becomes like the most overwhelming feeling in the unit. I'm like, I can never make a phone call again.
Yeah, it really fast. I also get it like writing text messages, like writing people back. And, I've lost really freaking good friends because was a really bad person. And like, I just I shouldn't say couldn't. I didn't, text them back. But that was an anxiety for me, like 100%.
That doesn't make you a bad person.
I don't know.
It's part of an illness.
Debatable.
Maybe for other reasons.
I mean, it's a text. It could be, it's a silly little thing.
No, I totally relate. The same thing happens to me, absolutely. And I've lost relationships because of it as well. And I just can't. And then the longer it goes on, the bigger it starts out huge in your mind already, but the longer it goes on, the bigger it expands till it's the biggest mistake you've ever made in your life, and there's no way of rectifying it. So you just have to walk away from the situation altogether, write that one off.
I mean, how do you explain it?
Yeah, how would you explain it? Exactly.
And you like hate yourself so much that you don't blame a person for hating you.
100%.
That's happened to me with you before, Katrina. Like there's been like, I didn't text you back for like a day, and that was okay. Like that happens to people. They get caught up with life. And then it was like 2 days, and then it was 3 days, and it's like, well, now I can never text you back again. I guess like I've lost my best friend. Like that's it. There's no way she'll ever understand. There's no way I could ever explain this. So that's it. It's over.
I'm so happy I'm not the only one that goes through this.
I know.
You're not alone. You are not alone.
Oh,
Everyone in this group hates me and they don't want me here and they think I'm stupid and they don't think I follow through on anything. Definitely had those thoughts before.
God.
And I think it's so interesting because it's like, that's your best friend. I do that with my best friends too. People that I have been like consistently, I meet up with my friends, 3 of my friends, once a week, religiously. And to this day, and these are people that have like held my hand through terrible things. I mean, losing my business, just all kinds of stuff, moving, having to like do all these things. And these are not people who lightly enter into relationships by any stretch of the imagination. So it's one of these things where I'm like, they all hate me now. It's like, yeah, because they're the kind of person to hang out with people that they don't like.
Right.
Let alone, and it's so, but it's crazy. It's like, it's like, you're not crazy. It is a crazy feeling. And you like fully convince yourself that all these people and all these things that you put all this time into over one silly sort of thing. And it's not silly at the time. And it certainly doesn't feel silly. You're like, those people will now never do anything with me again. They'll never want to see me again. How could I have been so stupid as to put myself in that position where, because I know I suck. Why would I like need to hear it from myself again? Like, why would I put myself in a position where it would ultimately end the way I knew it would, which was with me knowing how much I suck? It's like,
Yeah.
and I mean, it does sound ridiculous when you say it out loud, but it feels
Not inside your head.
100% real. It may as well be like true.
Mhm.
You can convince yourself 100% it's true, no matter how like illogical it is. You're now like, everyone hates me. I'm going back to bed forever. No one will miss me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so true.
But feelings are not facts. Remember that.
That's such a great point. I love that. I need to repeat that a lot. I'm going to remind myself.
Feelings are not facts. Another way it manifests for me is I'll start to envision, like in vivid detail, terrible things happening to the people that I love, anything, but like things that have never come close to happening suddenly seem very plausible. I remember when I left my dog at home one day and I couldn't remember as I drove away, or I got like a few miles away and I couldn't remember if I had left any coat hangers out in my room. And I suddenly was terrified that she was going to stab herself in the eye with a coat hanger and it would go into her brain and she was going to die. And I ended up driving back home to check and there weren't any. But even if there had been, like, my dog's never gone near a coat hanger. She's never exhibited any sort of behavior that would indicate that she would come close to a coat hanger to poke herself in the eye with it. She's a very graceful dog. Like, she's not clumsy. And yet it seemed like the most plausible thing that was about to happen. And I had to drive back home to stop it. And it was an emergency about to happen. Yeah. And my dog was going to die otherwise. And things like that become so prevalent to me when I have high anxiety. And I had to go on anxiety medication because of that, because I was starting to have panic attacks because of all these things like that seemed like imminent or imminent. Is that the right word? Yeah, like about to happen in my life.
I'm so with that. I'm so like, I shouldn't say I'm glad, but it does make you feel a little bit better knowing that you're not the only person that goes over the most I will convince myself similar is like, I read a story once about this like freak accident where somebody's dog got tangled up in a blanket. And ever since then, I will like put every single blanket away because my dog likes getting under the blanket because I'm like at my thing this entire time. Like she's going to go under a blanket and she's going to suffocate. And it's like, and I'll like lose my mind. I'll be at things that I love. But then I'll suddenly have this like freak out about like, I should never have left my house because what if those things happen? And then that's like, I mean, I do to this very moment, I still have the anxiety when I leave the house, period. Like I'm going to the grocery store. I'm going to take a walk. I need the walk. I get to the door and I'm like, what if something falls on my dog's head? What if the house burns down? What if, I mean, it's just, and some of that is from my trauma because I've had, I mean, you know, a lot of my trauma background has to do with things happening suddenly. So, you know, I lost my dad suddenly at a very young age. So that is like, I had our business actually, you know, was burned down by people that were sort of an external factor. And so now it's like, everything's going to burn down. And it's like, no, it isn't. You need to relax. Like, those are freak things. And that's what I have to do. I have to remind myself that, like, healthy 44-year-olds don't drop dead in general. That was a really rare, really traumatic, really unfortunate situation that I had with my father. But on the whole, that's not normal. And that's not something that happens. And there's, I mean, I don't know. For me, I almost have to, like, go look at the data to make myself feel better. I am a total Scully on that one, where I need the science. I need to know that this doesn't happen and this doesn't, but it works for me, I guess, like knowing the math. So yeah.
Excuse me.
No worries.
Yeah, I definitely haven't experienced the fear of something really traumatic happening. But I definitely can relate going on the meds, right? Like,
Yes.
I've done that. I've had to do that.
Does anybody have, like, really, I mean, does your panic ever make you have to, like, stop? Has it ever stopped you, like, where you're just like, what's happening? Because I've had my panic do that to me. My panic attacks have gotten bad enough where I'm like, oh crap. Like, I just sort of like blank out completely. And that's a really rare occasion, and it's really stressful stuff has to be happening. But it's almost as bad as having a seizure. And I've had seizures in the past, and it's that not knowing. I had a friend compare it to having a stalker a little bit, like never knowing when it's going to strike, which causes a whole new level of anxiety, because it's like, is this going to give me a panic attack? Am I having a panic attack? Is my heart palpitating because of this panic attack, or is it because my heart's palpitating? So you almost like, I can work myself into it sometimes and have to like be like, yo, stop it. You're not. But I mean, those are the ways, like, it's tricky.
Yeah, it can lead to really embarrassing situations. Like, if someone's late, like even like 5 minutes late, I start to imagine all these different ways that they've died in a fiery explosion or like been murdered or like whatnot. And, you know, if someone's like late coming back, like I've had like a significant other who was like 10 minutes late coming back from a movie at a movie theater. And I started, like, when he wasn't answering his phone, I started calling the theater like every 5 minutes to see if they could track him down and see if they could find him, and like going on this like rant about how, you know, and it was really uncomfortable for the employees who had to deal with it. It was probably some teenage kid who didn't know what was going on, and embarrassing for me in the aftermath, and just uncomfortable the entire time. No one likes to sit with those feelings.
No, not at all.
And definitely during the situation that we're dealing with right now, it's really easy when you're sitting at home alone to have that sort of mental, because there's nothing there's no noise, there's no nothing. It's just a bunch of people driving by, and you're like, what's happening? I mean, my husband works 40 minutes away, so as soon as, if I don't get like sometimes if I don't get a phone call, it's like, I know full well he's a manager and that he has to stay over past the time all the time, because he's just a salaried manager, and that's the deal. And I've been with him for 20 years, and I know the deal on, you know, sales and management and all this stuff. And yet somehow I'm just like, why hasn't he called me?
Mm-hmm.
And it's scary, because once you've had those moments of like loss, you start to really, and I worry about that with this situation with the virus, because a lot of people are doing this for the first time and they don't know. And remember how scared you were the first time that it happened to you, and that you didn't know what was happening to you, and you didn't know why it was happening to you. And I really, really hope that people out there right now dealing with this know that you're not alone, and it's not the first time that's ever happened to a human, and you're not going mad. Because that's one, a lot of times, where you're just like, I'm nuts, I'm going insane. And I don't know, really, really hope that people are like finding ways when they first start to feel that way to not go nuts in that way. I mean, just to hope.
Yeah, because you're not alone. I mean, I think I think we have a graph or something that shows this, but I think like 284 million people in the world have suffer from anxiety each year. 284 million. I mean, that's such a huge amount. That's more even than the number of people that suffer from depression each year, which I think is 264 million. So these are not small numbers. You're not alone. You're in the company of many very fine people all across this globe.
I apologize. I can't find that graphic to bring up.
Yeah, that's okay. I actually was reading one too that it's like 1 in 4 people will suffer from depression. Like 1 in 4 adults will suffer from depression at some point, just in general, like during the course of several weeks. And I'm like, okay, well, there's 3 of us on here.
Right.
One more person, and it's like, and that's a lot. I mean, when you're standing in a group of 8 people, that's 2 people per group. That's a lot of adults. And we already were, and that's before. That's kind of like the whole, and it's not
pre-COVID.
Yeah. And it's not like even people that don't have depression, giant air quotes, get depressed. And it's, yeah.
Yeah, something like 1 in 3 more people are going to be affected by depression. And I'm not sure if it's depression and anxiety or just depression, but 1 in 3 more people are going to be affected due to COVID.
I mean, I'm not surprised.
No, it's just such a vast amount, though. I mean, it's not shocking, but it is.
What's more worrying is like the healthcare system and like how do you get help? And like that's so hard to navigate and to understand, and even just to get a freaking appointment.
Yeah.
And there's no one offering solutions for it. I mean, let's be realistic. Some of the like political situation over the last few days where you're just dropping Medicare from the conversation entirely as part of a platform. And that's just not, I mean, you've got people that are suffering from the virus itself and the ramifications of the virus. Like we talked about last week, losing your job. That's depression. Like that's going to cause depression if that was something, whether you loved your job or hated it or felt moderate about it. Yeah. If it's gone, it's gone. And that's scary. If you're not getting the help you need, that's scary. And exactly right. There's no outlet. Or
I mean, what about like I think it's 11 million people that are about to be evicted. And I think Common Club will be talking about that, later this week. But like, that's insane.
Yeah.
Like, what? Can you imagine your mental like capacity at that moment and like what you're going through?
No, and if you have untreated mental illness, you're headed into that situation. If you have treated mental illness, you're headed into that situation. And if you're just somebody out there that has a mind, because everyone has mental health, it makes it worse. And how great are you going to feel about yourself, even though it's through no fault of anybody's own? I'm on the street now with my family or my dog and me, or it's not choice. It's not like you had any avenues. Like, no, we're only going to give you this much money or no money at all. I mean, there's so few people that there was a lot of people that were left out of what was called the stimulus package just because, and that doesn't help either. So it's,
and one stimulus package really doesn't.
For 5 months.
Anyway. But what about like, how do you guys deal with it? What gets you through? How do you get past it?
Medication, as I said, helps a great deal. And then I try to practice mindfulness, which is just the practice of being present in the moment, being present in the present moment. I shouldn't say it's just that. That's an extraordinarily difficult thing to do. But, anxiety exists when our minds go into the future. So when my mind's in the future on like, what happened to this person? What happened to my dog? What's going to happen to me? That gives me anxiety. when my mom's running on fast forward like that. And so practicing mindfulness brings me back to the present moment and only to what's actually happening around me. Like, you know, the feeling of this dress against my skin, how these earphones sound on my ears, you know, muffling my voice. The how something smells in the air, the taste of the dinner that I just ate. Those are all things that are in the present moment that you can focus on, or you can sometimes like grabbing an ice cube in your hand. If you have like not much around you, but you can get to a freezer, you can grab an ice cube. That can shock you back into the present. Some people wear a rubber band on their wrist and they'll hit the rubber band when they're feeling anxious. It'll bring you, it just jars you a slight amount. It doesn't hurt you, but just jars you a slight amount back into the present moment so you can practice that mindfulness.
That's awesome. That ice cube tip is so great. I love that. I learned about like grounding, basically similar, which was like the color of, you know, name 5 colors, name 5 streets that you know, name, you know, and I learned that, I don't know, just from reading. I try and read a lot about these things because I don't like to get into the mindset where there's no hope for me and there's no chance of fixing this and there's no way of doing that. And so, but things have they have a shelf life for me. And I need to rotate through different exercises because it's like grounding worked for me last week, but it's not working for me this week. And I don't care what color anything is. You know, F the colors and F the streets, and I don't want to hear about it. But that is a helpful thing. What I do for myself is switch it up. If the colors aren't working, I pick something else, like 5 of your favorite sci-fi movies, or, you know, what were your first few favorite colors? I don't know, something like that. But that ice cube thing I'm going to use. That would be perfect for someone like me, because that's the sense, the touch, that's a good one for me.
Like the ice cube in your hand, if you take a baggie and put water in it with a little bit of rubbing alcohol so it won't totally freeze, and then stick it in the freezer, and that will it'll make it kind of jelly but cold. You can put it on your face, and that's a really good way of kind of jolting yourself back. It's it's very soothing too.
Julia, with all the good tips.
I love it. This is great. No, this is really cool. I mean, it's part of the reason why I like doing this for just me. I mean, this is awesome for me too, because those are just things I've never thought of.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely use grounding techniques. They work or they don't work. I'm like Mel. So then I have to do another activity, and it's usually an activity, you know, coloring or baking or cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Coloring is one that I discovered a few years ago. It was my mother-in-law, actually, who turned me on to that. And she bought me, and then my husband bought me a bunch of coloring books. And gosh, I loved to color as a kid. I never really thought about it until somebody else brought it up. And oh my gosh, what a great thing to do. I realized that just picking the reds that I want to use on that line through the, and they got me like Celtic knotwork ones, which are really fun because it's like a focus thing where I'm following that line. And then I have to sometimes I have to quit on that too, though, because I'm like, I get overly perfectionist on it. And now I'm like, this is wrong. It's all wrong. And I'm like, okay, you're doing the wrong thing with that. It's supposed to go the other way.
You're going the wrong
direction.
That's the
thing. Like any activity I think you start will at some point become a problem. And you have to change it, for sure. I really want to, wrap up the show. I don't want to be on for too long.
I wanted to talk about this wrap plan, but I have notes in the other room. I just have to grab them. I'll be right back.
Yeah, do it.
Please like, subscribe, comment. We'd love to have more people talk about their issues, be a part of the show.
If you guys have tips for us.
Yeah, let us know.
That's cool. I mean, what I love about doing this with you guys is that, first of all, it makes me feel infinitely less alone. And making the show has been very therapeutic as well. Yeah. But it's silly things. It's just little simple stuff like that I never would have thought of. And, you know, we all see different therapists and different doctors and in different parts of the country. So there's always like different things that people can contribute to that. And so if there's people out there who have tips or tricks that they use, that you guys use out there, drop them in the comments or, you know, sign up on the Reddit, that kind of thing. We can definitely, I like it. The one thing that I would say getting through, talking to other people like me, because there's a lot of the camaraderie helps.
Yeah, talking is really what will get us through this. Like, and being honest about what we're going through. People don't like to talk about mental health. They don't like to talk about what they're going through. And I think that it's important that we do.
And are we going to touch a little bit on the thing that you found about?
Or Julia's going to bring a topic.
Oh, that's right, the rap thing. I definitely want to hear this. This is important.
No, I can't find my notes actually, so I'll have to open the show next week by talking about the RAP plan.
Cool.
Sounds great. So we have something to look forward to next week. Julia will be here with the RAP plan to get us through anxiety and depression. Although that's not what the next show will be totally about.
No, but we can lead on.
Subscribe, like. Again, please reach out if you have any comments or would like to be on the show.
And I would like to thank everybody for such an amazing first week. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking it out. We got such an amazing response, and I'm glad that it helped people. I mean, we set out to do something that was gonna make people feel. Oh yeah.
Sorry, just saw this.
No, that's okay. That's perfect. Yes, that's perfect, Alicia. Having someone to hug or something to hold on to, or having that dog like sit on.
Yeah, pressure points are good
pressure
too.
points.
Yeah.
Good for migraines too.
Yeah, yes. I didn't know about that until fairly recently because I have some people that do like Reiki and stuff like that. And so they are, and I'm a skeptic at heart, so those things were tough for me. But then I actually went and did acupuncture once, and it is mostly meditation, but I found that it functioned properly for me. And so I did a few more sessions, and I was shockingly impressed by the results for myself.
Well, there you go. Like that's like find something that works for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I love it.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in.
Well,
This has
thank
been
you.
a great time.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. It's so amazing that, yeah, I hope we can keep helping you guys out. If you have anything that you want to discuss, you want us to talk about, if there's something you'd like to see in the future, we'd love it because we have a lot of things on our list, but there's plenty of stuff out there that we probably haven't seen, you know, or talked about or know about, or thanks.
Yeah. We appreciate you guys. And
All
next
of you.
Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, we'll see you back here.
Bye.